When people use the word codependent, what some people mean is that you're in a relationship with someone with an addiction, or they mean that you're just kind of dependent on another person. But codependency is really much more specific than that, and it can be much more soul-sucking than a lot of people realize for both the person who's acting in a codependent way and the person they're sinking their codependent teeth into. And I know that's harsh, but if you are in a codependent relationship, and especially if you already have had a life of trauma, I want to strongly encourage you to get clear about what you're doing and do everything you can to heal it. So how do you know if you or your partner are codependent? Here are some behaviors that characterize codependency in relationships, and you can see if they apply to you. I'll tell you what they are, and then I'll come back through and talk about what you can do. But here's what it looks like. One is codependents second-guess themselves when other people mistreat them. And instead of setting a boundary like walking away, which is where you would genuinely not accept bad treatment, a codependent will try to make the other person change, like again and again and again. All right, number two is if the other person doesn't change, the codependent will generally increase the pressure. And as this pressure ratchets up with threats and you need to do this and telling you what to do, and if you don't change this, it can get very ugly. But of course, it still doesn't end after that. Number three is codependents are not straightforward about their motives. They often don't know what their motives are. Things can get very tangled in the codependent mind with a lot of cognitive dissonance between the picture they're trying to paint for the world and to their partner and how things really are in the relationship and within themselves. Codependents will tend to express themselves with things that are more what they believe will be effective at making others care or change, rather than expressing themselves directly and honestly and allowing the chips to fall where they may. And this can limit their ability to know what's true and what they actually want. Number four is, like everyone, codependents want to feel happier, but they're working with trauma wounds that give them a blind spot toward the situations, the changes that can actually make them happy, which would be more in the realm of developing themselves, allowing relationships to form naturally with good people who care about them. So they're not focused on that. Number five, a codependent is waiting for another person to come along and give them the love and connection and financial stability and the vision that they want for their own life that they don't have for themselves. They're waiting and waiting because it's just not something that they generally can generate. So there's this weird quirk where instead of, being self-determined and envisioning what they want and going for it, it loops into this other person, and then they try to get it from that other person, and it usually never works. So they'll often attach, this is number six, to dysfunctional people, which gives them the opportunity to play the role of the fixer. It's a powerful instinct that fires up to fix, and this distracts them from all that's missing in their life. They're not doing this consciously, but that's definitely the result, is they're not getting what they want. They're just, this fixing energy is just sending all of their willpower just out towards something else, towards somebody else. All right, number seven, codependents like to feel like the responsible one, the wise one, the poor suffering one who holds everything together, even though people have seldom asked them to play this role. Have you done that? I do so much for you, and you don't do it back. But is that what anybody asked you to do? That's something to check in yourself. Because for a codependent, playing that role, the wise, long-suffering advisor, it's how they get their sense of belonging and how they get their sense of meaning. But it's not actually what's going on. It's a role. All right, number eight, the importance that a codependent places on seeming to have it all together often, prevents them from connecting with people or asking for help when they need help. There's just this huge, need, the look good, it's called. They have a look good, and it's a barrier. So number nine is, they find it hard to admit personal failures and worries and things that most people all feel from time to time, like, Oh, I feel like hardly anyone genuinely likes me, like a big self-doubting thought like that, or I thought I'd be further along in my life than I am right now. Like, is that something that you ever admit to other people? Because a codependent doesn't want to admit that to other people, can't really get in touch with that feeling of self-defeat or worry, right, about themselves. Number 10, they will generally describe their pain as something someone else did or failed to do. And you will have this hard time when sometimes I ask people when we bring them into the coaching program, can you tell me what you want to heal? And they can't. There are certain people who they can't answer the question, how would you really like your life to be? And they can't answer the question, what would you like to heal? That it tends to be a story about other people and what those people did. My mother did this and she did that, and my partner is just so this and that. And so the whole problem is described, what they want is described as, it's just like there's this whole narrative that comes up about somebody else. And that's, it's very obvious right there when somebody cannot describe what they want, what's been going on right there. We all have had problem people in our lives at times, and it can be very energy consuming, worrying about them, hoping they don't just drag us down into their problem. Okay, fair enough. But a codependent has a really hard time seeing that they signed up for that relationship. We sign up for most of our relationships, and that those relationships, they're just not like something that happens to you. So number 11 is, a codependent confuses themselves with another person, or more specifically, another person's problems, focusing entirely on trying to solve the other person's problems rather than solving their own problems and accomplishing what they want in their lives. That just becomes their whole mission, is like, I'm going to get that person to change. So number 12 is, they deeply believe that if the other person changed, they would be happy. And they do this even when the other person is someone they've only dated for a short while. And that's an example of extreme codependence that can be quite alarming, is that after a very short time, somebody's life is completely capsized and they see themselves as having no choice, no other options, because look, this other person, right? It's just, they've just like hitched their wagon to it as if it cannot be separated. Number 13 is, a codependent will sometimes purchase books. They'll research therapists out there, and they'll watch videos, including my videos, all to help their partner, who they believe needs the resources but just won't admit it. So I get that a lot, and I'm happy for people to watch videos and they say, how do I get other people to watch this? You really can't make people watch videos or take courses or see a therapist. You cannot force it unless they're breaking the law or they're a threat to themselves or others. And there it is. So the thing to do in that situation is to get your own help, to pursue resources for yourself. And so you'll see that a lot. This is often, codependency shows up as this like, I was with this guy and he was a terrible abusive narcissist. And we finally broke up, and now I've been on my own for several months and I'm doing better. And I want to send him this book about narcissism because I think it will help him. And if they've hired me to coach them, I'm just like, no, no, if you think they're so terrible, stop having contact with them and allow them the dignity to suffer with their own problem or find their own solutions. But if you're the victim of their terrible treatment, you are not the person to try to help them right now. That is codependent sort of jumping in to try to divert you from looking at the pain of being somebody who chooses that sort of person as a partner, for staying in such a relationship for as long as you did. It's painful. You're out now. You're actually in this very good place. But codependency can really just, like all of our negative tendencies can sort of show up in that void when we've gotten out of the bad thing, but the good new circumstances haven't begun yet. The way you can court those happy new circumstances of life is to accept the loss of the ending and to cut contact with the people who hurt you. Number 14, they don't tend to seek resources for themselves, codependents, or even admit they have a problem. And that echoes a lot of what I said here. There's all that focus on helping other people. Other people have problems. They're not doing anything right. And if you're doing that, it's almost always a sign that you need to be seeking your own resources. Number 15 is, to the codependent, their own negative patterns feel like a force of nature. It feels like a curse, It feels like something that just happens. Like, why? Why does this keep happening? And so if you catch yourself thinking that, ask yourself if there's this just a little diversion in there that makes it difficult for you to see that there's a pattern. And if the pattern is happening again and again, it's not because everybody out there is a certain way. It's because you have a pattern and you end up connected to people like that again and again. You can change that. It's good news. It's good news when it's in here because it means you can change it. So number 16 is a codependent often feels resentful and taken for granted because they do so much for the other person who never reciprocates or barely does or kind of half-assed does and doesn't appreciate or value all that the codependent is doing for them. And this is a normal dynamic that develops when one person is codependent. It will tend to turn the other person into an avoidant and an underfunctioner, even if they weren't before. So an overfunction or overfunctioning is when you do more than your share of things, and it often overlaps with codependency. They are two slightly different spheres, but big overlap there, where you do things for other people that they could do for themselves, but you just believe like they won't do it right. I have to do it. Sounds a little too familiar to me, honestly. I think I do that, but it produces underfunctioners. So it's really important not to do that for yourself and for other people. Number 17, when you ask a codependent about their own hopes and plans, they just have trouble answering. And it feels to them that, that maybe the future is something they can consider in the future, but right now is a crisis. I can't even think about that. And when this passes, maybe I'll catch my breath and I'll think about what I want to do with my life. But because of a codependent's choices, there is almost always a state of crisis around them. And there's never a quiet spell. Quiet spells are uncomfortable, and then, behaviors begin that will draw in a crisis. And who's doing that? Okay, something to ask yourself. So number 18, codependent people tend to repeat their relationship patterns on the job with their supervisors and with their coworkers. And so whatever goes on in, partner relationships happens again there. It often began in childhood. So it's a pattern. It's kind of a groove that a person's spirit gets into as being codependent. And again, they will tend to believe that they just attract to these people. Like, where do they come from? And they can't see that, in fact, they are the one drawn to those people who will treat them that way. They're attracted to the bad dynamic that they have with people who will sort of be on the receiving end of codependent behavior. It activates a toxic stress to, come around somebody like that. And when your life is really empty, toxic stress can feel like a high. And I always say it's like the methamphetamines of emotional highs. It's a drug that gives you a very quick high and then has terrible damage for years and years for your life and is very hard to stop. So you don't want to do that. We seek a high emotionally really to treat depression. Anger can be a high, drama can be a high, even sadness and limerence can be a high. But feeling like, once again, for the codependent, that feeling that they're going for is, I'll just step in as the wise one, the long-suffering one, the one who has done so much silently, suffering, and pressuring other people to change. And it just leads to more unfulfillment and more failure and more need to step into these, dysfunctional roles. So number 19, because of all this, codependents often live with a toxic level of stress, and it makes them prone to stress-related illnesses and chronic pain and autoimmune disorders and, getting sick all the time and financial problems and social isolation. Those are side effects of living in a codependent manner. You really can't get away with avoiding your own life and trying to run it through somebody else's life and then suck it back out of them. It won't work. When codependents don't get what they want, and they seldom do, they can get very angry and lash out or even explode. And this can isolate a codependent further and drive people off the very relationships that might help them and support them as they tried to make positive changes. So it can be a negative cycle. And being isolated like that, it strengthens all other aspects of codependency. So what do you do? Let's go through that list again, and I'll mention some steps you can take. You don't have to do all of this at once. At the end of the video, I'll point you to a free download where I list these signs, and you can use that to craft a plan of healing for yourself. So number 1, if you second guess yourself when other people mistreat you, it's time to consciously stop trying to make the other person change and focus instead on what you need to change. And probably it's setting boundaries, honestly. There's no substitute for having a trusted person like a therapist or a 12-step sponsor or a coach who can help you spot where your boundaries really are and how you can express them and honor them so that it becomes almost impossible for anybody to walk all over you. Number 2, when you set boundaries, you can ask the other person for the change you want. But if that doesn't happen, when you feel the urge to increase your pressure on them to change and make you happy, take that as a cue that it's time for you to do your work, that you need to change so that you can be happy. Maybe you can change within the relationship, or maybe it's so far gone that you will need to step away from the relationship to work on this. You don't have to figure that out instantly. Once you start focusing on yourself and working to bring your focus back to yourself, the answers will come naturally. Number 3, pay attention to whether you can express yourself in a straightforward way. Not with hints, not with role playing or expecting somebody to read your mind, not as a helpful critic. That little, I just had a little thought that might help you. But can you say directly what is bothering you and what you want from another person? Now keep in mind, they're not obliged to become who you want them to be, but you get to ask and you get to find out how they respond to that, what they can do, what they blow off and won't do at all, what they will do. And the more you can tell the truth about what you feel and what you want, not with pressure and anger, but just saying as a fact, I feel really worried about the fact that you're not working, and I'm getting resentful that I have to bring in all the money for everything we need. That is straightforward. It's not, honey, I think you'd be happier if you started working again. It's not your job to tell them what would make them happy. It's your job to be honest about yourself. And when you do this, you may not get the answer that you want, but you'll see what the relationship is made of, and it will force you to face reality. And who knows, reality might be something that you end up liking better than your imagined version of who the other person was supposed to become for you. But it will help you get to know your own mind, your own heart, and that's a good thing. All right, 4, you want to really ask yourself what you need to be happy. And you might not know. You have to rule out the requirement that someone else change too. That's my rule for you. That's a fantasy that you're pressuring them with. You might be right that it would solve problems for them, but it's not happening right now. So it's so important that from that place in reality, you're able to imagine and envision what it really is for you, because it's possible to be happy whether anyone else changes or not. And I know it's complicated sometimes. I know people can create problems, but it's possible, and your happiness depends on taking responsibility for that and taking action on it for yourself. Like everyone, you need some joy in your life, and you need relationships with a few good people who care about you. And this tends to be what makes people happy. So number 5, discipline yourself to notice when you are operating on a belief that you are helpless and someone else has to come riding in to bring good things into your life, whether it's love or money, some direction for your life to go in. It's very easy to surrender all of these to someone who simply can't do it for you or doesn't want to do it for you. And you can take these building blocks of happiness back into your own hands and begin making a life for yourself, a good life, with or without them. And you may be new to all this, especially if you didn't learn any of it from your parents, but you can learn it. I definitely recommend 12-step programs, maybe even Codependence Anonymous, as a place where you can befriend other people who are practicing joy and autonomy in their own lives and setting boundaries. Number 6, this is a hard one, but chances are you have attached yourself to one or more dysfunctional people. And it's going to feel like everything depends on you fixing them, so they'll finally see the light. And I do know what it is to live in fear that a loved one will die if they don't get it together. It's so hard not to try to just grab them, It's be like, come on. And it's not that you can't be loving and supportive, but it's different than that fixer energy that characterizes codependence. It's time to turn off the fixer engine. And at first, this may make you very anxious. You can try it with smaller things at first, just to have the experience of letting the chips fall where they may, just a little bit. And mostly, you're going to be happily surprised at how smoothly life can go, even when you're not, driving, even when you're not fixing everyone and pushing them along. When you experience this, you'll be vulnerable to a codependent relapse, because fixing people may have become your identity. It's how you get your sense of belonging. It's where you get your fuel in the morning. So it may feel very quiet and empty at first, but hang in there. This is the space where real joy and real purpose can come in and gently, gradually begin to fill you. Number 7, letting things fall apart because you're not fixing things might make it so that other people can see that everything is not as perfect as you may have wanted them to think. And the good news is your perfect picture of yourself that you're putting out there is actually alienating for other people. It shuts down any real connection. And this is a big reason why you may have suffered so much in your life with loneliness, not having people who care about you and who will help you when you need help. So that can begin to melt. Number 8, and you'll need people and a place. It doesn't have to be a lot of people, but at least one place where you can honestly admit your personal failures and what you're struggling with. 12-step programs are great for this. Your new friends there love you more when you're honest about your faults and problems. That's how it goes there. That's what people connect with. And it's such a relief for everyone to just get real for an hour. Number 9, it's time to take stock of how your own actions and choices have played a role in this struggle that you're having. And if you're an adult and you're inclined toward codependent behavior, it will feel like this is just happening to you. And it's true, you may have been shaped into this role by childhood trauma. But now you're an active player in the dynamic, and all it takes is one person to change the dynamic. So why not let it begin with you? 10 is to be very clear what other people's problems are versus your own problems. So here's where friends who are also working to heal from codependency can be so helpful. It's not always easy to see clearly what our own actions and motives are. What are our problems? What is not our problem? Once you make some progress, it's going to free up so much of your energy that you used to spend trying to solve problems that there was no way you could have solved. And you can do something nice for yourself instead. You're going to like that. 11 is catch yourself every time you're ruminating about other people's failures and falling into that trap of giving them the power to give you happiness or take it away. Your happiness is an inside job. And if you're lucky, you're going to have some positive relationships that contribute to your happiness, but not when you're outsourcing all responsibility for that happiness. It never works like that. It's got to be from your clarity and your actions. Number 12 is to be especially vigilant in new relationships that you're not putting emotional spackle all over the holes in the relationship or the deficits in the person. And this is what I call crap fit. That's crappy childhood fairy language for when you fit yourself to unsuitable people and horrible situations. We get too good at fitting ourselves to crap in our lives. And if you had to do this early in your relationship to maintain your sense of hope and love that, you meet somebody and you just want it to work out so much, and then the problems appear and you're like, wait, I'm going to make a way I don't have to look at that right now so that I can believe that this is going to work out. I totally understand the desire for that. But this is your time to connect with your healing friends and get very honest with them and get their support to get back on your path and use your senses to determine, is someone a good match for you or not? So 13 is, if you find yourself buying books or contacting a therapist or offering to pay someone to get help, you know what that means, right? A, you're doing it again. And B, this is your cue that you need to help yourself. It's a weird loop that the codependent mind does when it needs help. It tries to get someone else to get help. Help yourself. So 14 is take seriously that you need the books and therapy and courses, and just keep your focus inside your own hula hoop, as we say. Keep it on yourself. When you heal yourself, it will tend to have a positive effect on other people in your life. And that is your best chance at actually influencing other people. If you don't really know how your healing is supposed to go, sometimes just taking one little step into that healing will start to open your mind and reveal to you what the problem is. So it's always worth putting your toe in. 15, remember, this sick and draining dynamic isn't just happening to you. You're not cursed. You're not doomed. You're just operating with codependent tendencies, and these can be healed. 16 is to deal with all your resentment. And if you tell me you're not stuffed with it, I'll just have to invite you to let it in. When you spend all of your life energy on someone else and you didn't get that energy back from them, it's a ripoff. Of course you're angry. Of course you do more for them than they do for you. And it feels like a ripoff. But the thing is, you are the one giving it all away. You're stealing from yourself. And it's totally normal when one person becomes the fixer, the other person becomes the slacker. And it sucks, right? It sucks the life out of you. And the only way that stops is if you stop your part in the dynamic. 17 is, it's time for you to flesh out a vision for your life. And when you've withdrawn from living from crisis to crisis, you'll have extra energy and maybe even a sense of emptiness. And that's hard. That's a little hard pause right there when you feel empty after the crisis passes. That is a perfect environment for you, though, for your vision to develop. Sometimes in a context of a little bit of depression and pain is when it comes to us. But you have to give it a chance. You need solitude time. You need time to reflect. You need time to try things. And it's bumpy at first because you're addicted to not looking at your life. But very quickly, this time of quiet and opening up to your own agenda for your life begins to show you choices. It begins to fill you with hope. So 18 is to ask yourself if your codependent nature is also draining the joy out of your work. And yes, you can begin changing this dynamic, and if you don't have the power yet to do that, you can try changing the job. 19 is, and this may sound extreme, but it's realizing the consequences if you continue to live at this level of unfulfillment and toxic stress. This is not who you were meant to be, forcing things all the time, feeling disappointed and exhausted and alone. You need and deserve love and support. 20 is, don't wait to make these changes. Don't let it get so bad that you lash out or you burn bridges and sacrifice your money and your stability and your happiness. Healing can begin right now, today, and I promise you one small step can make such a happy difference. And that next step just sings in your ear, inviting you forward, and it feels good. The irony about a codependent person is that while they're focusing excessively on someone else, they're actually absorbed in themselves. And one sign that someone is behaving in a codependent way toward you can be that you feel very irritated and invaded by their attempt to be connected to you. They hover, they get in your business, it feels impossible to have boundaries around them. They say it's just because they love you, but something feels off. Sometimes codependency is an urge to fix you, but sometimes it's not about you at all. It's about them, and that's the dirty secret of codependency. It can actually be one face of self-centeredness. My letter today is from a woman I'll call Karen, and she writes, "Hi, Anna. It took me 30 years to understand that I was codependent. I'm turning 40 this year, and most of my life I've been crap-fitting and giving time to painful friendships, relationships, and jobs." Whew, I've got my fairy pencil. I'm going to circle things I want to come back to for a second reading, but let's go through and find out what's going on for Karen. The last 10 years, I've been in recovery mode. During these years, I've found healthy friendships and a job, and they're guiding me toward better decisions. I'm living my happiest time. I'm now single and dating mindfully and slowly. There's still a subject in my life that I don't seem to get my head around, and I'm wondering if you can help. My dad got sober when I was 3, and I've considered myself very lucky. But when I understood that I was codependent, I realized that although there weren't visible addictions in the family, everything was still not over, despite my dad's sobriety. So I guess she's linking codependency to substance abuse. Okay, possible. My parents are nice people. They're friendly and welcoming, and I feel bad that I'm having trouble being around them. When I'm talking to people about this, many just shrug it off by saying that parents are always make their kids mad. But I'm not sure what to think of my situation, and I feel guilty for my feelings. The thing is, I'm an only child. I had unwanted power in my home growing up. As a kid, I once wrote in my diary that I felt like the dog that walks the owner and not the other way around. Everything revolved around me. Needless to say, I was spoiled. I had some boundaries like when to come home, but never had to clean my room or do any chores. As an only child, I felt lonely all my childhood and somehow unsafe. For some reason, I couldn't really trust my parents to be there for me. I'm still trying to figure out what really affected me as a kid. I'm one of those who had a happy childhood and still battled with mental health most of my life, mostly years of prolonged anxiety and panic attacks. My parents are retired and they live 4 hours away, 4-hour drive. I visit them every few months and I usually spend a weekend. My mom is clearly codependent toward me. In the past, I had to battle her to stop calling me every day, and the situation is still looming. When I visit, she circles around me like a fly. Her words. She thinks it's funny. She is an anxious person, and a few times I remember her panicky voice calling me like I had gone missing. I was in the bathroom. This sounds silly, but last time I ended up tiptoeing in the house to not let her know where I am, so she wouldn't follow me around. I recently wanted to make them dinner, and while I was in the kitchen, she spent the whole time trying to read my thoughts, meaning every time I reached for something, she was there to hand me groceries she thought I needed, although I stated firmly multiple times that all I needed was time to think. She doesn't respect my boundaries, and I often feel like she doesn't really listen to me. And then again, it's really hard to keep my boundaries when I'm in their house. She's not the kind to be self-reflecting, so I don't think she can really change. My dad has been sober most of my life, and I feel closer to him than my mom. Although he's kind toward me, I think he has such low self-esteem that he needs extra appreciation all the time. That's interesting. You're trying to fix that for him. He needs extra appreciation all the time, but you automatically qualified it as it's because he has low self-esteem. He's the master of making everything about himself and still needing more. I find it hard to talk to him since he doesn't have the ability to hold a conversation, but everything turns to his monologue. I've seen the same behavior in many men his age. I guess it's a generation thing also. I can't help that all this shuts me down, and I've noticed I tend to develop a very dark, almost compulsive inner dialogue in their company that drains me more. I feel they pull me under every time I visit there, and I don't know what to do. I get dysregulated and shut down, and the last time got me in an active anxiety that lasted almost a week. In my past, I've battled periods of anxiety lasting for years. So it got me really worried. I'm feeling these dramatic feelings are something I shouldn't feel since they are not bad people. Am I just so spoiled that I can't even realize how great a family I have? I've tried to talk to them, but it really hasn't led to anything, so my wish is to get on top of this on my own, but I really don't know how. The only thing that is constant is that I get really depressed, and I'm now concerned if another visit turns into prolonged anxiety. They're retired and still healthy, but I'm concerned about the future when they'll need my help more. Can you help? Oh gosh, Karen, this sounds hard. My heart goes out to you. So let me go through what you told me, and I'll tell you what I observe here. You call yourself codependent. Maybe that's the word for it. I don't know. You're turning 40 this year. You've been crap fitting to painful friendships and relationships and jobs this whole time. So you're not able to go for what you want. The last 10 years, you've been in recovery mode, so that's great. You're dating slowly. You're dealing with healthy people. Progress, very good. There's still a subject in my life that I don't seem to get my head around, and I'm wondering, okay, my dad got sober when I was 3, and I've considered myself very lucky. But when I understood that I was codependent, I realized that although there weren't visible addictions in my family, everything was still not over despite my dad's sobriety. Yeah, sometimes I think the word codependence is often used in different ways. And for some people, it's what you are if there was an addict or alcoholic in the family. And maybe that's the dynamic for you. He sounds like, though he doesn't drink, he still has some pretty negative characteristics. We'll talk about him in a minute. And so, codependency develops as a result of neglect. So I guess what I want to posit to you, Karen, is that you had this great family and they're so nice, but they weren't. Your dad is completely sucked into himself and can't listen in monologues. Your mom hovers around. I expect she's lonely from being married to him, but she hovers around and she doesn't respect boundaries. She's very much like in her need. So she's not present for you either. And so in a sense, you are a neglected person. Your personhood is neglected here. And it would connect, if you're like living a life of anxiety, you crap fit, you are following a pattern of people who are traumatized or neglected. I think neglected is an appropriate word. And then stifle it. Somehow there is not permission for you to just criticize this. And I'm not really talking about to their face, that's a separate decision, but just to admit, it wasn't that great. Just because you weren't beaten, just because your dad wasn't actively drinking, doesn't mean you were emotionally cared for. When somebody hovers around, that is about them, it's not about you. And I just really notice that you see real patterns in people who were not seen by their parents, which could be the case even if overt abuse is happening or not. You're not seen, you're not being witnessed as a person, and that is so important to a kid's development, to get them to notice what they like, to give them space to make a choice here and there, and to this thing where they did everything for you. I don't know, your mom sounds, I get the impression, I don't know because I don't know the whole story, but I just get the impression she doesn't have much of a life or an identity outside of her family, and this husband who can't even talk to people and just talks about himself. That sounds really hard. So you're an only child, so you had all this focus on you and everything revolving around you. That's a lot of demand from a needy mom, and I hear the anxious energy. She's anxious. There's just anxiousness. Your dad drank for, there was some kind of thing going on in him that made drinking feel like a solution for a while, and then he stopped, okay. And I don't know when you say sober, if you mean sober and in an active program of recovery. People who are in an active program of recovery will make a distinction, and somebody who's merely not drinking but just carrying on with life and able to not drink, they might call that dry, which means the characteristics of alcoholism show up. And self-centeredness would definitely be one of the common characteristics of alcoholism. So you never know. But I'm here for you. We could think about them and diagnose them. I just hear that you're afraid to let them down and that you don't have a right to be angry. And when you say she won't respect your boundaries, I can't totally tell if you're like tiptoeing around the house, whether you're expressing your boundaries, but I believe you when you say she's not going to change or get it, no matter what you say. So now it sounds like you would like some time apart from them, that it's actually challenging your mental health to be around this. There's something to be said for what I call ninja boundaries. There are ways that this is an alternative. You can, I don't hear from you that you would like to cut off contact. You just need a way to cope with this without letting it get to you. And boy, do we hear you. We don't have CPTSD, around here because our families were all full of easy, great people who supported us. And many of us do want to have involvement in our families, but we need to do it in a way that doesn't drag us into anxiety, a huge period of dysregulation, depression. And those are all signs. If you feel depressed after you see them, whatever you call it or where it's from, it's real. You get depressed around them. And so I can imagine, you've been in recovery, so you're having something like this in your life on your own, but where you start to develop who you are, your identity, and your confidence in your identity, so that when people are just like getting all in your head and trying to put groceries in your hand, that would bother me too. People helping. It's not helping. I just heard Dr. Phil or somebody say, I was scrolling when I was taking a break, saying helping people is doing things that they actually would like you to do, not putting things on them that they don't need, or something to that effect. And I remember going, yeah, I thought about that. And that's what's happening to you, isn't it? She's not helping you, but they're sucking help out of you, that's for sure. I wonder if the relationship can be changed so that when you visit home, one of your boundaries is it isn't a whole weekend. I hear that it's 4 hours, but you could just make it a day. Even if you have to stay in a motel for the night before or the night after or something, you hang out with for a day and then you go on. And it's just like a matter of quantity of time. It helps to prevent the bad consequence. You can check in on people, see how they're doing, help them repair the screen door or whatever is needed, and then get out of there with your sanity intact. Another thing you can do is support yourself. I call them ninja boundaries. So you can make a decision in advance. If they start doing this, I don't want to do that with them. I don't want to participate. And you think of gentle, almost invisible ninja ways that you don't get involved. So if someone's picking a fight with you about something, you just say, oh, you're probably right. With your parents hovering or something, you're like, oh, that's lovely, Mom. And then you find a reason to leave the room. And I hear you if she follows you around the house. I didn't really get a sense from you how much you articulated to her things like, Mom, you're following me, and it actually makes me uncomfortable. And could you please stop? I love you, but please don't follow me around the house. I will be back. So whatever's going on with her, it's a psychological thing, I guess. You say she can't respect your boundaries. Are you respecting your boundaries? Are you respecting your boundaries? And so a lot of times, we don't really have a boundary if people just can walk all over what we said was required and we don't leave, we don't step away, there's no consequence. Then it's we who don't have a boundary. We've expressed a preference, but it's not a boundary. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm never a fan of getting all harsh with people if there's another way. That's it. I cut you out. Don't ever call me again. There's a reason why that's not, something we want to do. It may not be necessary. It's about you having boundaries. And the best boundaries, ninja boundaries, they're sneaky. Nobody really knows you're setting a boundary. So you tell them. At some point, I have to go run an errand or I'm going to go meet somebody. And no, I'm sorry, you can't come with me. I will be back, though. And you go. And even if they're standing there going, but, you go. And let them deal with their feelings. That's what a codependent does, is they have trouble anticipating that there will be negative pushback, and then when there is negative pushback, they can't handle it. They feel like they're bad people. And you have this here. You think you're a bad person. I do not hear you're a bad person. I hear you're struggling with boundaries with people who are kind of clueless about them, who aren't really there for you or really listening, that you're fulfilling a need for your mom and your dad. I don't even know. Maybe his need is just for somebody to be his audience. I don't know. Yeah, he's a master of making everything about himself and still needing more. I think people in the comments will tell you what the word for that is. I'll try to stay off that word. So you find it hard to talk to him, can't hold a conversation. And I have seen this behavior. I do see that people who have these negative traits, if they don't countervail them and work on it, they do get worse with time. And I know what pattern you're talking about in certain older men, where they stop working on themselves, and then they just sort of go in, they know the answer to everything, they've got an opinion about everything, and after a while you just get exhausted and give up. It's not a conversation. And I think there are, different kinds of people, women, men. Obviously, they're not perfect categories, but there's other things, other ways that women can sort of keep going down the track of their, the problem for them, the thing that's driving people away, and not come out of it. So I just want to praise you. You are working on it. You've done 10 years of recovery work. That's fantastic. You're building the tools. Part of any good recovery work always includes like self-reflection, self-evaluation. And that's what I like about you. You wrote, your letter is very reflective. You wrote to me, you're, subjecting yourself to the whole internet coming on. And, a few of them will just be like, I think she needs to cut off contact. And then I think she needs to be a nice daughter. And people will have their opinions. But I think most of us will hear you and have something about it that we can relate to and be on your side. We're on your side. If they can't change, it's your choice to decide. How can you have them in your life if you choose to? How can you have them in your life in a way that you can handle? And it sounds like the terms need to be renegotiated. If you really can't have that conversation, you can use this: I don't engage in the activities and the behaviors with them. I don't comment on them. I don't talk about them. I find a way to separate myself from that interaction very peacefully. Because with people who are very self-centered or prone to, get yucky on you, it is yucky. It's this very benign yuckiness, right? But with people who do that, It's often not worth it to tell them why you're taking a step back or even to make it obvious that you're trying to set a boundary. It just triggers them, and then they start like doing what they do, and it'll just ratchet up the behavior, right? For you, the goal here is to get out of it with your sanity intact. So a really important thing you can do is to have tools and friends who are right there on text, and you drive there, so that's good. You can take a drive out. I don't know if you go to 12-step meetings, but that's always a good excuse to get out of the house. Go, sorry, I have to go to a meeting, or I'm meeting a friend for coffee, and you can say that. You can tell little white lies like that. Because right now you're protecting your sanity, that your friend for coffee is you. That's your friend. and you just got to take care of yourself sometimes. And while you're taking a break, you can do this thing that I do called the daily practice. That's what I call it. And it's a very specific technique to write and release fearful and resentful thinking, which is not so that you can never be mad or have feelings. It's so that you can get the cluttery, unhelpful bleh out of your mind and start to have clear thoughts. Even if that clear thought is that, you know what, I'm angry and I need to act on that. Or I'm angry and I've decided that I'm not going to deal with that right now. You have choices. Your choices appear when you have less fear and resentment. So when we do that writing, it's specific. So anybody listening, like, please take my free course, The Daily Practice. There'll be a link below and I'll connect you to it at the end of the video. But when you do that, it just can bring you back to yourself, more calm, more clear-headed. And if you do it regularly, you can transform out of the person who was driven by these symptoms like anxiety and depression. Depression was my problem when I started it, and it just helped me move forward so quickly. It also supported me while I made changes that take more time, figuring things out by trial and error in my life, the dating, the jobs, the friendships. And it continues to support me today, and it helps me get up in the morning, and it helps me calm down at night. And so I'd love for everybody here to try it. You might want to try it. When you heal from childhood trauma, it is inevitable that some of the people closest to you are not going to heal right along with you. You'll still be close, but you'll have to watch them stay stuck in soul-deadening situations, bad relationships, unable to see that they could get free and that they actually have the ability to leave and change their life. How do you help someone who refuses your help, who gets angry at you when you even try to encourage them, let alone tell them what to do? My letter today is from a woman I'll call Allison, whose best friend still lives with her terrible parents. And she writes, "Hi, Anna. This is the first letter I've written like this, not just to you, but to anything like this. I'm a private person, and I try to handle issues independently." She says, maybe a bit too independently, but that's a whole other thing. I'm lost when it comes to this. All right. I've got my fairy pencil. I'm going to circle things that I want to come back to in a second reading, but let's read through Allison's letter one time and see what's going on. All right. She says, "I'm an adult with CPTSD. I've done a lot of work to heal from it. I have a close friend I have known since we were kids. She also suffers from CPTSD. And I know this because we have bonded talking about our respective crappy childhoods. And we relate so much to each other in a way that only people who have been through similar experiences can understand. She's often been my lifeline through the years that have been very bad. She's the closest friend I ever had. I care about her a lot. I love her. She's my family. We both have our own crappy family situations, and while I feel like I've made progress in getting out of mine, she has yet to even leave. That's not a criticism, as if it were so easy. I know how hard it is, how it feels easier to stay than to face the unknown or ask for help. But I don't want her to be left behind. I have tried numerous times throughout the years to talk to her about leaving. She wants to, but there's always a reason not to leave. And while they're valid, the awful conditions she's living in cannot possibly be worth it. I've known her for nearly 10 years now, and while she's made progress with her mental health and trauma recovery, though how much one can actually do that while also enduring the abuse from the same abuse from childhood is, I believe, drastically impeded and undermined. But she, at the rate she's going, says Allison, it could be at least 10 more years by the time she's ready to break free, or she'll crash and burn out long before then. Even worse, if she never gets away at all, I feel like I'm waiting on the cusp of witnessing a disaster. Mm-hmm. If things don't improve or change, I can't see this ending well. I'm sick with worry and heartache. Today I tried again to talk with her about leaving, and predictably she didn't react well. I wrote her a long message that I put everything into. It took so much out of me. I put every ounce of honesty, compassion, care, and love into that message, trying to reach her, but her response was more the same I'm used to hearing. I know that she's really scared. She's pretty much on her own. There's me, but I live in a different city 2 hours away. I've talked to her about reaching out to supports that could help her out of this, but she has shut that down. I want to help her, but I don't know how. Other than the support and love I can offer, it feels like all I can do is witness as she continues to suffer with no end in sight, and it's becoming unbearable. My question is, what can someone like me do in this situation? Is there anything a person can do? I know that you can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. That I'm not responsible for them. That it's not in my power to change or fix them, nor should it be. That kind of decision and action has to be made by the person themselves. But I just feel so helpless. And it's painful and horribly sad to witness. I don't know what to do. So I wrote to Allison and just asked if she could clarify for me, like what's going on, because my opinion on this is a little different if there's like grave physical danger. I wasn't sure exactly what I was listening for, but I wanted to hear, is Allison just imagining that it's so terrible and interfering, or is her friend in danger? Okay, so she wrote back to me and she said, her friend's home life is toxic, dysfunctional, and abusive. The father is an alcoholic that's completely checked out as a parent. The mother is a textbook narcissist. Together they make quite a pair. And okay, so Allison says, I've heard from my friend all the awful things they've done and said to her over the years, and I'm disgusted and angered to my core. They criticize everything she does. She's always falling short in their eyes. They criticize her appearance and generally treat her as if she was a mistake that weighed down the biggest burden in their lives. They have her convinced that she can never survive in the world on her own without them, and yet every single message they seem to be sending her is how deeply she's unwanted. But I know that's bullshit, and I have pointed out as much to her. That her parents, most notably her mom's retirement plan, is her. They need her to stay to take care of them, especially as they get into older age. Her mother's the most egregious with what she asks of her. I hear about some of the things she has her do, like clipping her toenails. It just makes me want to scream. My friend caught COVID, could barely breathe. Her mother forced her to mop the floors. Only letting her stop when my friend's breathing became so labored, her mom was worried the act of cleaning might kill her. Clearly, they want her to exist for them as some kind of live-in servant. I don't think they would be able to afford a personal support worker with what their pensions will give them. I feel like my friend has been born, raised, and groomed to serve them. We met in high school, and she told me years later that I was the first person to start pointing out that the things her parents did and said to her were super effed up. They were not right. And the reason it stood out to me as wrong in the first place was because I was familiar with what abuse looked like coming from my own abusive situation. But it always shocked me just how effing wretched her parents could be, from controlling her and every little bit of her life when she was a kid and teen, not letting her leave the house under the guise of being strict. But really, I see it as their way of keeping her isolated and under their control. There were times when she would have gotten their express permission weeks in advance to go out with friends, and then at the last second, she was not allowed to go. And this is less effective on her as an adult, but given that she still lives with them, I know she still has to live around this. She tells me that she avoids making social commitments, not because she doesn't want to, but because she can't take the grief she'll get for doing it when she gets home. And just because she's grown doesn't stop them from trying to control her through intimidation and threats. If she's disrespectful to them, which means her not acquiescing to their beck and call with a smile on her face, they threaten her. And one time she told me they were going to take the door to her room off for talking back to them. As a grown-ass woman, and another time recently, her father threatened to beat some respect into her. These are the bits and pieces I've gotten from her, and I can only imagine the things she hasn't told me. And knowing how abusers are behind closed doors through my own experience, it's horrifying to consider. The most I've heard from her was that her mother hit her when she was younger until she got big enough to defend herself. It's devastating to see this playing out. My heart breaks over and over again thinking about all the years they're stealing from her. But then the sick turning in my stomach knowing that as an adult now she's letting them. I've tried so many times to encourage her to leave and warn her that there might be a day she wakes up and realizes just how much time she's lost, and that whatever money she's apparently saving by living at home is not worth what continuing to live there is doing to her. Anything that costs you your peace is too expensive. The life she could have that they are taking from her, a future she could have with a family of her own who actually love her. I want to scream. And yet I know that it's not that simple. It's like when people say the thing about women staying with abusive partners. Why doesn't she just leave? And I know it's not that easy, and I know it better than most others would. And I wonder that if life didn't play out for me that way, the way it has, that I would be stuck in the same boat of being trapped, living with family that mistreated and abused me. And I'm still going through the process of recovering from all the trauma that she has left me. And I will still probably be dealing with it for years to come. And I worry that if my friend doesn't get out now, she's going to be spending the rest of her life regretting it. And she said, I hope that clears it up. Oh my goodness, Allison. All right, I barely circled anything. I just feel very moved by your letter, and there are no easy answers for this one. Everything, you already said some things I could have told you, like, you know, that clarity that it's time to leave, it almost always has to come from within, unless like the cops step in, unless the people die, unless things get so violent that the neighbors notice and somebody comes in and intervenes. This is a dodgy gray area situation where, you can't really call anybody. I don't know, maybe you could do an adult welfare check. What I was going to suggest to you is that you check in with a women's shelter and talk to them about this situation and what they would recommend. They have a lot of knowledge about signs to look for, about what to do, what you can't do, what is helpful to people, what tends to make them feel threatened. So I have a very dear loved one in my family who is in a relationship. It's not the parents, it's a partner, and it's been going on a long time. And years ago, when they had children who were small, I used to sometimes try to intervene. And everything that you're describing, like, I just relate to you so much. That is how I felt about my loved one. And everything that I ever did to try to help fell flat. Like, occasionally there were these little moments where they did want help and they would, maybe try something for a couple of days, but they would always go back. And it was very, very, very hard for me to accept. It didn't make sense to me. It just seemed so obvious. And now that I'm older, like, it's been a long time. I haven't even had contact with this relative in a long time. But now that I'm older, I recognize more the organic change that takes place in people, the way trauma, and my relative is very, very traumatized, like very traumatized as a kid. And, it's not surprising that this is the pattern right now, but you're right. When people stay in this type of thing, then the pattern gets more and more kind of locked in. And I don't expect it's ever going to change. I was really hopeful for a long time. I used to give money. I used to, and then the authorities intervened and, I was part of that. And I'm not the one who phoned it in. I phoned it in once very early on and I got cut out of their lives for years. And I didn't do that again because staying in their life was how I could be a lifeline to my loved one and the children. Just staying in their life. And I thought, well, if it's really bad, hopefully, and they didn't even live in the same city as me. If it's really bad, somebody else will call the authorities. And they did eventually. That ended up happening eventually. I was always racked with guilt about that. I should have done more. I should have done it differently. But when I did do it, it made everything worse. And it resulted in like no contact ever again. I really I played every card I had at a certain point to go, you've got to leave. You have to leave. I screamed at this person I loved. I regret screaming, but at the time, actually a social worker was coaching me, and not wrongly, make them understand, that this is it. They're never going to see their kids again if they don't change. And so I took it upon myself to make them understand. And boy, that's a loaded phrase, isn't it? You can't really make somebody understand. You can try. So I did my best on that one. And it was heartbreaking. And over many years, I've found some detachment from it. And I live a little bit in fear, that it's going to come back to bite me, because that situation, there's a lot of other sort of toxic things going on with it. And they do unpleasant things to people, and I don't want that to happen. I just want them to be okay. And I hope one day we can have a reunion in okayness and not in anger or anything. I never succeeded in what you can do about that. And I'm just so sorry to tell you that. I don't know. But if I had it to do again, I would go to a women's shelter and ask them. I would just say, I'm the one who needs some counseling on this, because once you're caught up in the way that you're emotionally invested in the way it's tearing you apart, you're also the victim of this situation. It's ruining your peace, and you have your own healing to do. And so I'm not saying, cut yourself off, don't deal with somebody who refuses to change. But I'm just saying, whatever you do, stay very, very focused on your own healing so that you continue. I think the best service you can give to somebody who, when they do decide they want to change, is be somebody solid and dependable who's got it together. And you're such a good friend, and you love her so much, and you're able to do this, relatively without judgment. I was going to say, and I know you know this, but believing that she needs to leave on the time scale that you believe she needs to do it, there's a way of looking at that it's a criticism, it's a judgment, it's something that you can't really know yet. When people, it's kind of like when people who drive drunk are forced to go to AA. They don't often stay sober because it didn't come from in here. It didn't come from in here. You can't really make somebody get sober. You can't make somebody leave a relationship they don't want to leave. It's just not in human nature. And so it comes from within. Why do we ever recover? And I think that the things that make us strong and get to a day sometimes, why I have eventually, gotten back to, or gotten up to living in a functional way, is there were some good people around us, some solid people. We felt enough acceptance and non-judgment that we could sort of connect with them. And I think a lot of how we recover from a terrible childhood is through the relationships we have with other strong people. And some of those people were, my friends. Some of them were my friends' parents who helped me out when I was a kid. Some of them were relatives who have told me since then, I really should have done more at the time. Sorry, I didn't know what to do. And teachers that I had, and then pursuits that I had, like jobs that I had that I actually really liked and got skills where I could make money. That's really important for somebody in an abusive situation. There's often, a great difficulty making money. And so I find that traumatized people often have this fraught relationship with money where they resent people who have it. They resent authority. I say we, right? But those are the very, being able to work with authority and to embrace money is how you have a living enough that you have autonomy to get out of a terrible situation. If I had to guess, I would say the reason that she stays is because abandonment melange. The thought of leaving sounds even worse. The thought of being alone, the thought of making a separation with somebody with whom she has a bond is so threatening. It is an existential threat in her mind. And, who among us hasn't done that before, especially if you grew up with trauma? Whether you do it in a romantic relationship or you do it in some other form, jobs, staying in a terrible job. I've known people who are just complaining about their horrible job for decades and they don't leave. And sometimes you just want to go, come on, but there's something there. There's something there. Part of the trauma is not being able to leave. Part of the trauma is being in it. And there's some awareness where you're complaining to your friends and going, this is terrible. They do this. I hate it. But part of the trauma, part of the sickness of the trauma, the damage done by the trauma is an attachment to that very situation and a feeling like it's just impossible to go. I know you know that, but I'm saying it out loud for all of us. Like, it's part of it. And so any part of trauma that can be healed will help that particular aspect of the trauma. That symptom, that staying in terrible relationships where you're miserable, that is a trauma symptom. On the outside, we might think, if you would just get out of there, you know, when you said, oh, she could have a family of her own and be happy. And I thought to myself, I want her to have that. But she, you know, when you've been living the way she's been living, there's a whole process there to get where you can have a functional relationship. There's a process of healing, you know, and may she find it now. May she get there very quickly. We all want that for her. Maybe she'll see this video, you know. We love you, friend, you know, come in, the water's fine. To make a big change like that, to really like exit the consciousness of an abusive relationship, there needs to be a lot of support, a lot of gentleness, not judgment, not like, you got to do this, you have to do it now. You know, my timeline says you got to go. And, you know, it's not that your timeline, Allison, is reasonable. It's not that it's crazy, but it doesn't work for another person. The timeline is when they can do it. That's when it is. I don't think we should abandon people with this sort of, you know, cold, you know, well, you make your own choices. I'm not saying that that's necessarily that either. You can be present. You can stay talking to her, and just when she's going through a crisis and tells you about it, you can be like, I'm so sorry you're going through that. I've been watching you go through this a long time. I really hope one day you're ready to make your move, and I'm here for you when you can do it. Like, that's a nice way to offer that help, rather than, come on, you've got to do it, you're wasting your life. Even if you're right, that's a level of pressure for a traumatized person that it's just obvious that she can't really cope with that it shuts her down. It makes her flee. So make space by mentioning softly the possibilities, accept where she is, give her your love. And, you know, in the worst case scenario, if she ends up dying in this situation, I would really hope that it wouldn't turn violent, and that would be the cause of it. But if she just stays forever, I meant, you know, if at the very least she'd have a loving friend in her life, and that is a precious and beautiful thing. And I think you're lovely for offering that to her. It's very rare that people have a friend like you. So I'm proud of you. I appreciate what you're doing, and I want you to care for yourself so that your peace is not lost over this. I assume I'm much older than you. And one of the things I've learned, I've seen people, you know, die of drug addiction when I just like, why can't they stop? There's a way to do that. They must do it, or they must get out of the relationship. My mother drank, and you know, she died of cancer. And while she was dying, I was so like, you know, on her, like, you have to stop. This is going to kill you. And she didn't stop, and she died. And then she wasn't there. And I was like, why didn't I just kind of hang out a little more? Like, there are some things we can't control, and we can love people anyway if we can, you know, take care of ourselves and hold our peace around it. So that's what I wish for you, Allison. I'm sad for you. I think the people in the comments are going to have wisdom to share about this, some different opinions. Everybody, please be kind to all parties in this story. Let's be supportive. I have a little feeling that your friend might see this video. So, you know, let's keep that in mind and not put her down, and just offer encouragement there, because there's a lot of people who watch this channel who were in a very similar situation too. And when you speak about this friend of Allison's, you know, all the people in the friend situation hear you. All the people in Allison's situation hear you. So remember to be kind and encouraging to everybody here. You know, Allison, you're at risk here of being in a codependent relationship. I don't think you're doing anything wrong, but a codependent relationship is where you get overly invested in somebody else changing so that you can be happy. And so for your sake, I want you to have some boundaries around this. Sometimes people acknowledge being codependent very lightly, as if it's just a small thing. And it's true, it's possible to be just a little bit preoccupied with another person and slightly lacking in awareness of oneself. But this cognitive imbalance can grow into a life-consuming monster, especially when it's combined with trauma bonding. Now, when love is given and taken away again and again, it can drive a person with codependent tendencies to almost completely lose their sense of reality. Has this happened to you? You lose yourself. When people ask if you're taking care of yourself, it sounds like dumb psychobabble. And you come to think that no one can understand the urgency and the complexity of this other person who keeps hurting you. And you have to keep secrets because you know on some level your behavior looks crazy to other people. And it feels like you're on a mission to break through to this other person. It feels like redemptive love is just around the corner if you could just get over this one last hurdle, their addiction, the fact they say they don't care about you, the obvious signs that their self-destruction or outright abuse will destroy your life and that it's in fact dangerous. You think these hurdles are just things other people worry about, but that you know better, and you think any minute now the beautiful moment will arrive when all this trouble is cleared away and you can be safe and seen and cherished at last. And I know what this feels like, and I know where it leads. So I want to talk about the deadly mix of codependence and trauma bonding in the language that someone who's in the middle of it will understand. My letter today is from a woman who I'll call Casey, and she writes, "Dear Anna, for 1.5 years, I've dated a man off and on who has a liquor/alcohol addiction." Got the pencil here. I'm going to be circling things I'm going to come back to. I'll read all the way through those so that we can just get a feel for what's going on with Casey, and I'll see if I can help. All right, 1.5 years off and on dating a guy with a liquor/alcohol addiction. However, he can still treat me horribly with beer, a lack of sleep, stress, or of lately, me setting boundaries as I learned to do. I've been putting up with it. The hot, cold, Jekyll and Hyde, love-bomby, discardy, quote, relationship, because he said things like, "You're saving me. You saved me. I want to heal you." Something that you, Anna, referred to in another video as exactly what the woman in that letter wanted to hear, and the guy knew it. And also, the guy that I like, says Casey, is so damn funny and intelligent. If only he could use his manipulation tactics for good, I hear myself saying often. I hear that you have a sense of humor in there, even if it's not funny. The best things he said are trumped by, "I want to beat you to death in your sleep. If I were to cheat, of course I wouldn't tell you, but I'd know." All of which he denies. "I didn't say that," he'll blast, followed by a 4-day rocky period from him if I bring it up. Due to my codependent and currently mushy and unsure nature, I'm still in the thralls of this person. However, it's getting worse, despite less time together, and his best friend in the whole world just had a seizure last week, and the CAT scan disclosed a quarter-size cancerous tumor next to the most important life-giving nerve. He may die during surgery, which is soon. He may never speak again if he lives. He may never be the same, and certainly his family situation has already been drastically affected. It's a scary and sad time. However much I want to be there for my ex or boyfriend, very unclear here. However much I want to be there for my ex while he's there for his precarious friend, he has become increasingly hurtful, rude, and has begun throwing things like wrapped food, fiddleheads and wontons last night at me, yelling, swearing, and trying to really show everyone around, like neighbors, how unsupportive and dramatic I am by yelling things like, "Don't touch me," when I try to calm him. He'll yell that my shaking is fake, that my tears are crocodiles, and that I'm manipulating everyone into thinking I'm a victim. I don't talk about this to anyone. I only have one friend and she has a family, and the time we spend together, I'd like to be positive. Oh yeah, and he removed a condom twice without my consent. I stopped being intimate with him after that, and he has physically hurt me, but by accident, when angry and on alcohol 3 times, and most definitely kicked me out when we were dating to phone other women who he referred to later when confronted about it as sweethearts and also disgustingly ugly. I can almost hear your fairy pencil circling this whole paragraph. Okay, here we go. I'm going to circle the whole paragraph. You can see my eyebrows are like, what? Circle, 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 circle. Okay. All right. His past consists of alcoholic parents who enable and or don't listen to him. A suicide on alcohol by his best friend at the time, another one later, and verbal and mental abuse at the hands of what seems like almost all his family, a stint in a hospital of some hidden sort. multiple arrests for resisting and DUIs. Oh, just writing it, I'm cringing. There is no way I'd let a daughter of mine deal with this. I'm 41 and been in 3 long-term abusive alcoholic relationships where I was cheated on and used as a babysitter. I had codependent and alcoholic parents, both with narcissistic traits, but overall loving, and they tried. Oh, I almost forgot. One parent cheated on the other since I was 2, and apparently I'd sit on one's lap as they argued about it. I also have a pretty hard-to-shake eating disorder and other unhealthy traits. What do I do, Anna? He is verbally abusive, moody as hell, yet going through one of the worst times in his life. Depressed, no money, friend possibly leaving him forever. Me too. I think she means she might leave him too. Turmoil in his mind, nightmares, etc. When he says mean things, I say, why don't you focus on friends you love and trust instead of me? Yet he'll ignore it and act nice for a few days and then resume his rather narcissistic habits to the point where I cry. And I'm not a crier. I'm a stifler and a flighter. He's threatened to blow his head off. He's overdosed on depression medicine he briefly took with a ton of liquor and had to call the ambulance, who put me on his I'm okay show for, and not to sound wimpy, but walking in on him that ambulance night has caused issues with my own mental health, along with the utter confusion at the nice/mean cycles, the gaslighting. Thank you for teaching me, Casey says. Jumping at slightest sound, keeping lights off, and leaving car down the street. So he thinks I'm not home, depression, inability to function normally, lots of staring and procrastinating, thinking maybe my reality isn't real, etc. How do I support him? And then in parentheses, and myself, I add during the final review of this letter, during his time of need without being codependent, or hurting him further by omitting myself from his life. I've tried for 4 months to get a few days of space and a legit breakup/friendship. And I've told him he can't treat me like that and expect me to stay around. I can say it, but I feel awful for not being there for him right now, for not at least saying I love you and good night. I feel like such a total jerk. What if he actually needs a hug? He rarely will give me one when I ask, but what if he does right now? I'm always up for a hug and love. I'm torn. Could you please advise? Again, thank you. Just writing this and feeling myself cringe has helped. Casey. Okay. Oh, this is one of the most painful letters I've read. Because Casey, I think that you may have really, really lost touch with reality here. And so, I want to give you some really tough love, but I realize that I think you might be in a very delicate state. And I'm going to try to make it really gentle. And first, I'm just going to say, I do understand. I'm going to ask everybody here who comments, go easy on her. It doesn't help anybody to get shamed about this. She asked, I have to admit a little bit when I read this, I wondered if I was being punked. Just because it made no sense that you're saying, how do I support him and myself? It sounded like a caricature of somebody who's so codependent they can't see the thing that's right in front of them. So let's just go through it. I'm going to tell you what you said. I'm just going to take you at face value that this is really what you're suffering with. Okay. So for 1.5 years, dated a man on and off. Okay, those are keywords. On and off dating. With all the crap going on here, you're talking about a trauma bond. So you do have the most extreme case of codependence I've ever witnessed. You're not in my life, but reading this, I don't think I've ever quite seen anything this extreme. I'm sure it's there. But there's also a trauma bond there. And a trauma bond and codependence together can be deadly, literally. So I want you to take what I'm saying really seriously. So you say he has a liquor/alcohol addiction. And so as somebody who has spent a lot of time around alcoholics, both drinking and sober, and gone to at least 1,000 open AA meetings and years of Al-Anon, I will just say that my observation is when people won't say the word alcoholism, they're in denial, okay? What liquor/alcohol addiction, liquor and alcohol, same thing. So is beer, by the way, when you say, but also he treats you bad on beer. It sounds to me like you have a very limited knowledge of what alcoholism is. So first thing I'm going to tell you is just get yourself to Al-Anon. Al-Anon is for people affected by other people's drinking, and it will help you to understand what the heck is going on and what can and can't be done for somebody. You have a very skewed idea of what the problem is, where your energy belongs, what can be done about it. And that's a program where you can learn about that. There's like every 12-step program could be helpful in this case, but I would say go there, at least so you first understand alcohol so you can stop worrying. There's literally nothing you can do about his drinking. So I'm just going to tell you right now, and about his alcoholic behavior. You can't change him. And all this energy you spent trying for a year and a half, I'm sorry to tell you, you threw that time away, but it's not too late to stop, okay? He has a liquor/alcohol addiction. However, he can still treat you horribly with beer, a lack of sleep, stress, or you setting boundaries. So in other words, what you're saying is he's an abusive alcoholic. And I would like you to just say that aloud to yourself. He is abusive and he's an alcoholic. All right. That may help frame it for you. That will help take away all the little hiding places you're trying to find with this long rationale of like what you think. It's just like you're rationalizing so much here. So interestingly, abusive alcoholic, like you had me at abusive alcoholic. Of like, yeah, what are you still doing there another minute? All right, that's the question here. So I'm going to read through everything you said, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it here. 95% of what you wrote is about him. You wrote about 2% about yourself and about 2% about his friend who's dying. And you had a lot more detail and awareness of suffering of the friend who's dying. And for yourself, you were just like, oh, eating disorder, and I'm kind of codependent. And you glossed right over who you are. And you know, if you've watched any of my videos, you know what's going to happen, Casey. I don't even care about this guy. I care about you. You were writing and asking for help. And what I'm going to tell you is all about getting all your focus and getting it right onto yourself on the one thing where you have the power to make a difference. You can't do anything about this guy. I know the fantasy. You know, I started out this video talking about, I know what it's like, just one last hurdle. If I could just get him to understand this one thing, you know, that this love is waiting for you. But that is your childhood trauma telling you completely bad dreams. It's just a bad dream. It's just this idea like that love is here. It couldn't possibly be anywhere else. It's here and you just have to fight this battle and win it. I know what it's like. I know what it's like, but that's what I'm for here. I got the pencil, I got my big mouth, and I give you the tough love and just, I read your own words to you. Okay, so you said, hot and cold, Jekyll and Hyde, love bomby, discardy, quote, relationship. And then he says, you're saving me, I want to heal you. So yeah, those are codependent seduction lines, really. Oh, it's working, you're saving me. Well, I just want to point out, Casey, you haven't saved him. And I'm just sort of being silly here, but saying you've done a terrible job of saving him. He's a mess. You've failed. So it's good. You can quit your job now. You know, it's not going to work and it couldn't have worked. So don't worry. That idea that hook that you could save him, you know, I'm pretty sure it comes back. I think I had that, you know, I always felt like if I could be loving and nice enough, the person who was angry and suffering and mean and cruel to me, that they would come around. And there's, you know, that's like a legend in my mind of something that can happen. And it's like hitting your head against a wall. It's a very sad thing because all the love that you were ever going to get in life, you've just sacrificed it to just keep trying to get it out of this like terrible, ugly graffiti wall of crap. You know, there's no love here. All the love that you were going to get, you already had from this guy. And now it's just grief. It's grief and cruelty. And some part of you thinks you can shut that down. You can close your feelings off. You're being heroic. It's like, that's just, your trauma is just lying to you. And it's lying to you pretty bad. You know, I'm hearing just little hints of awareness here. When you say you're cringing, you can hear the fairy pencil. Like, you know, on some level, this is like, it's not real, what you're pursuing here. It's not real. I don't hear any evidence. Even if this guy, like, all he ever did was say he loved you, his problems are too great. This is not, you know, you don't have a big commitment to him. It's just somebody you've been seeing and sleeping with. That's all it is. And it's somebody who's treated you terribly and who's been unreliable and brought pain and drama. And you're saying you've had 3 now, abusive alcoholic relationships. So I just want to bring crystal clear into your mind, the problem here is you. The problem is your attraction to these terrible people who treat you badly. There's some kind of, you know, some people call it repetition compulsion. Some people call it masochism. It doesn't matter what you call it. All that matters is that you stop it. You stop it at all costs. But I'll go through your letter. I'm just going to help you keep hearing what you said. You said that he alternated these things with You saved me and I want to heal you. He alternated it with, and he's funny and intelligent. And you thought if only he could use his manipulation tactics for good. That is a codependent thought if I ever heard one. If only he used his giant cannon for good, whatever. Can't be done. That's not what cannons are for. They're not for good. They're for destroying things. I hear myself saying often, the best things, he said, are trumped by, I want to beat you to death in your sleep. Girl, I think you got to get out of there like right now. I think you have to get out. When you hear words like that and your denial is thinking that somehow they're kind of outweighed by when he says, I'm going to heal you. Has he healed you? Are you healed? Or you've described to me the symptoms of somebody who's in a constant state of complete deterioration, anxiety, and delusion. I don't think you're doing very well. Okay, so when he says, I want to beat you to death in your sleep, out the door. And there's a telling thing here later. I'll get to it. You also said he said this stuff about cheating, and then he denies he said it. That's what they always do. Don't worry. 4-day rocky period if you bring it up. So then you trained yourself, I won't bring it up. I'll pretend it didn't happen. I don't want him to be mad because I might hurt him and I got to help him. Just calling you out here, Casey. This is quite serious. So due to your codependent and mushy and unsure nature, I'm still in the thralls of this person. However, it's getting worse despite less time together. Okay, it's getting worse. There's your sign. All right, there's your sign. Out. It's getting worse. You know what happens in abusive relationships as they're getting worse? They escalate. They escalate to something worse, and you must be out of there. It's just, okay? I almost never give direct hard advice like that, but when I hear somebody in danger, I'm just saying it. Out. Cut off all contact. This is like time to go to a women's shelter if you need to. Time to get serious help every day from people who understand, okay? So you're saying, I'm still in his thrall, and this thing about his best friend having this medical problem, and I just like, okay, his best friend has a medical problem. I hear you rationalizing why you have to cling to him, and you're clinging to him. I don't hear him clinging to you. He's kind of doing he's throwing wontons at you. He's saying he wants to beat you to death. This guy is not trying to work things out with you. He's not asking you to stay, but you're inventing a reality where he's not going to be okay without you. And I want to tell you something about alcoholics or addicts or people who are very unstable, is that being in a dramatic relationship with them can actually hurt them. So remaining in a dramatic relationship with them, you don't really know how bad it could be for them, but it can be very bad. What you're describing here is somebody, he's very vulnerable, he's suicidal. Girl, he could die, and you do not want to be the agent of drama bringing that to him. You are not his source of comfort. Everything you're describing here is just like a huge drama, emotional violence, horror show, relationship. It's not good for him to be part of this. He's not in a state where he can extract himself. You haven't been in a state where you can extract himself. This is like Sid and Nancy here. So who are you going to be? What can you do about this? You can get out. And I don't want to hear, I don't know how. Yes, you do. You put your shoes on and you go and you stop calling the guy. All right. So we'll get to the details of that. So you say it's a very scary and sad time. Not for you. It's a scary and sad time for a friend of a friend, this guy. Then you say, however much I want to be there for my ex, and you say ex and boyfriend, it's all mixed up, right? There's no boundary here. There's certainly no commitment. You want to be there for him while he's there for his precarious friend, his poor friend, if that's all he's got to support him. But I don't even care about those people. We don't know them. They're not asking for help, and they're not even asking for your help. So he's become increasingly hurtful, rude, throwing things, yelling, swearing. And this is where I think you're getting a little bit like distorted thinking here, trying to really show everyone around like neighbors how unsupportive and dramatic I am by yelling things like, don't touch me when I try to calm him. So I just want to tell you something. When somebody's upset, it's legitimate if they don't want to be touched. Your interpretation that he's trying to show the neighbors how unsupportive and dramatic you are, I'm just going to say that's a projection of your fear. You think that if you don't get in his good graces, you have failed to be supportive and calm, that you're being unsupportive and dramatic. And truth be known, you hanging on to this relationship with all of this kind of wild energy of like, you're going to fix it, it is unsupportive. It is dramatic. He doesn't need to show the neighbors anything. So he thinks that your behavior is manipulative, and codependence is manipulative. I'm not trying to like take his side or anything. He sounds really like such a big bummer that he thinks you're trying to manipulate everyone into thinking you're a victim. I think you have classic behavior of thinking like he's the designated patient and you're the reasonable, helpful one. That's what we do. That's what I have done when I've been in a somewhat similar situation. It's a delusion that we're just doing such a great thing for somebody, but actually we are right there in the trenches being just as whack, you know? It's a big mess. There really is no way out of it except, you know, sometimes by intervention, if you have friends to intervene. You've told me, I only have one friend. That is so normal for somebody who's in this type of relationship, an abusive relationship, one friend, and you don't tell her. You claim because you're trying to keep it positive. You're not telling her because you're trying to be nice or something. But I know why you're not telling her. You're hiding. You're hiding how messed up everything is. And I know this. I've been there. You know, like I know, because you told me, you read this to me, and you have this veil of anonymity on you, thankfully. But now you can hear this from me. You know, you're hiding because you're ashamed. Because anyone who could see what you're doing can see that you're doing a terrible thing to yourself and to your life. Anyone can see it. Okay. And I say that with all the love I can say of having been that girl. I've done that and I hid from everybody. And it's horrible because what happens when you're in an abusive relationship, and I mean a relationship where abuse is occurring, like I just don't see you as like, I just see you as having infinite choice not to be in this situation, but you're attached to an abuser and you're abusing yourself in effect. And when you're doing that, you're blotting out all friends. What's going to happen is when all of this falls apart, and it may have to be him who ends it if you won't, it'll end because he died, or it'll end because he finally does something so bad that you can't possibly go back, or he won't have you back. Like if that's what it's going to take, because that's what trauma bonds and codependence together create, it's like an impossible escape. So if that's what happens, you'll be there at one of the worst moments in your life needing a friend and you don't have a friend, and you were hiding from everybody what was really going on, having a fake relationship with them. This is where having CPTSD starts to get extremely dangerous, because when you have CPTSD and you have no support or nobody you can be honest with, your mind can take the trauma and kind of spin it up into something more than it is. This is where things can get violent. They can get where people like try to like publicly harm each other, make everybody think things about them. And I'm just going to recommend to you, because you wrote, I think you're like, you know, you're drowning and you're reaching up. And my hand is here going, come on, honey. Casey, it's time to come out. It's time to come out. And it's going to feel like withdrawal at first. It's going to be really hard. And your CPTSD and your codependence will, and the trauma bond will go like, I have to go back. I can't possibly feel okay on the planet Earth unless I'm back in this thing. And your mind will tell you, it's not because of me, it's because of him. He needs me. Oh, he'll die without me. It's just like, I'm just telling you right now, that's not what's really happening. This is what trauma brain tells you under these circumstances. And so there have to be other people helping you. And every time you go there, they can help bring you back. Now, hardly anybody, and especially if you've been in an abusive relationship, I'm going to bet you're not in good financial shape. I'm not hearing that you have a therapist or anywhere to go. So here's what you have. You have 12-step groups. They're free. They happen every day. You'll be very welcome there. What you're going through is so normal for somebody who grew up. You had an alcoholic and codependent mom, there was cheating, and they held you on their lap while they fought about it. You know, if I were a little girl and I were sitting on a lap with parents fighting about infidelity, you know what I would do? I would disassociate and I would pretend everything was okay. And that's what you're doing now. That's what you learned to do so well. And it's good you learned as a child, because it helped you survive that and have a spirit intact. But now is the time to stop that behavior. You don't dissociate, you stay present. You go, ow, when this person is abusive to me, it hurts and ruins my life. I will take myself out. When you were a kid, you couldn't leave, but now you can. So I'm just talking sense to you. I totally know what it's like. Trauma bond and codependence together. I totally know what it's like. Like your mind will not admit that that's good, and physical symptoms will come on. You'll have headaches, your body will ache, you'll be exhausted, but I promise you it will pass. If you know that that's coming and you can go, oh, this is what it is, it's withdrawal, because you know, we are physiological beings. Our trauma wounds are at the level of our nervous system, and trying to govern our nervous systems is a lot what drives us into these bad relationships, because it's so, you know, it can be like so like deadening and so depressing to not have that dramatic stimulation going on. And so sometimes a dramatic relationship, that's what feels like. It feels big, it feels like fireworks, it feels like love. That's what we knew, right? But it's not love, it's drama, and in your case, it's abuse. Abuse, drama, addiction. Addiction to the relationship. That's what the trauma bond is. So it's okay. And just like, you know, just like any addiction, it's not your fault. You didn't ask to have this wound happen to you. It's not your fault. Your symptoms are very, very normal for a girl who that happened to, who grew up to do this. So I want you to just like, you know, see if you can detach a little bit from the shame and acknowledge, yeah, it's going to hurt. I'm going to go through withdrawal, and then line up your support to make your exit. I promise you this relationship is not getting better. It's not going to turn into the love you crave. And the love you crave is possible for you, but the longer you stay in an abusive relationship, the more healing is going to take. Like, let's say you had a year of healing before this relationship. Now maybe you have 2 years of healing before you can do it. Like, get out. Let's get on with the healing phase so you can move on to the happy phase and the love phase of life. Life is short. Actually, life feels kind of long to me. But you don't want to spend another day suffering like this in a way that's just deteriorating your spirits and causing you to have strange mind warps. Because one day you're going to meet somebody healthy, and you're going to want to have a nice, good mind and be able to show up with an open heart and clear thinking and worthy of that good relationship that you crave. So that's coming for you. But first you have to get the poison out, and you are sitting in a vat of poison right now. Okay. So you told me about his background. He had this, he had that, he had this bad stuff happen. Right? But he's not in your life anymore. He's your ex. I want to tell you a secret. I don't know if you've seen many of my videos, but this is my suggestion to everybody with CPTSD who has attachment wounds, who finds themselves in bad relationships. Once you break up, this is what you do. You don't have contact with them anymore. There's no such thing as an ex/friend. There's no such thing. It's a such thing for people who have no emotions about somebody, who have a common purpose with them, but you do not have neutral energy towards him. You do not have a healthy attitude. It's a fantasy that you could just like use words and say, now we're just friends. And, you know, judging by my own time in this kind of headspace, I'm going to guess you didn't even mean it when you said just be friends. Probably a lot of things you say are just to try to see if you can get him to activate his desire to save the relationship. I don't think you want to be friends with him. I think you're in love with him. And I understand. That's what we do. But if you want to heal from that, just sick, life-destroying love that you feel, and you know what? It's not love, by the way. It's the closest thing to love that you can imagine right now, but there's a such thing as real love, and it's on the other side of this for you. And it cannot begin till you get out and take your time to heal. And healing, you know, people say a lot of different things about it. They say it's going to take a long time. And what always discouraged me as a person with CPTSD is people say, you know, you have to finally face your childhood trauma. It's like, okay, I'm well aware of my childhood trauma. Well, how come I'm not better yet? I have never had luck just facing it or talking about it. I use specific concrete techniques. I work with my nervous system. I then take on the terrible life problems that I created for myself while living life with a dysregulated nervous system. And I teach that stuff. You can come into my program. We have like an inner circle of members where people help each other and have Zoom meetings, and there's like 4 meetings a day that people are leading just among the peers, and then I lead calls. There's stuff you could do. And if you have other things that you think might be helpful, check that out. Like, get busy. All the energy you're putting into this relationship, if you could put that into recovery, you'd be doing it full time. I can hear you're full time engaged with this terrible situation. You say, what do I do? And this is where I thought that maybe this was a trick letter, because it's like, I just feel like, did you really think I would have some sage advice for how to get him to be where you want him to be, that he would just realize that you're great and he would stop drinking and become something? Like, I have nothing for that. I wish I did. I have a lot of people in my life who have died from this disease. And if I could have saved him, I would have. I have nothing for you, and nobody does. People who have alcoholism, they can recover, and they do it because of the help of another alcoholic who talks to them about it in a way they can relate. And it's a long process. And for you, you might be like me. You've done it enough times and you've seen what it does to your life. If you ever take my dating course, I'm gonna have you first thing, write down exactly what you want and what you need in a relationship and what's a deal breaker. And whether you see it now or not, I'm gonna encourage you to put down, cannot now and never can have had an alcohol problem. Like, I think recovering alcoholics can be wonderful partners, especially if they've got some time. For you and me, no, just don't. I just would say that's been a pattern so many times, you know where it leads. And here's the thing, because twice I've been with partners who were recovered, but then they relapsed. And I totally forgot about that could happen. And at the time they relapsed, I would have to say there was a lot of drama going on. You know, there were ways that they were letting me down. I was upset. We were arguing. That's very stressful for somebody with an addiction or alcoholism. It's no one else's fault that they drink or, overdose. But you don't want to be the person who is having an argument with them the day that happens. That's not a good feeling. It's not good karma. And I would just say, given that this is a vulnerable area for you, just block it out. Your CPTSD will tell you no love is possible. There's no love, only love. The only thing I'll ever have is this guy, and I have to like work it out with him. It's a lie. There will come a day, trust me, you won't think about that guy, and when you do, you'll just go, oh, I can't, oh, what a terrible year and a half of my life. Oh, that was so unhappy. That will be the thing that you get to let go of, not your life, not your future, not your happiness, not your story, not your awareness. You said you had an eating disorder. That's a big deal. People who have an eating disorder, that's a serious struggle and deserves your top attention. It's your top attention. It's not going to go away because somebody else changes their behavior. That is trauma-driven codependent thinking. I will be happy if I can get them to change. I'm going to put a video at the end of this that talks about what I really think about that. I kind of mince no words about what I think that is, having taken that thinking all the way to the end of the road where the person dies. Okay? I'm trying to give you a cautionary warning here. Don't go there. Don't take it that far. You can get out now with a minimal of damage, and I recommend it. Okay. So, yeah, there's more stories. He says this, he says that, as if you're trying to convince me he's being unfair. Of course he is. He's awful. What a nightmare. Wow. And you say you're not a crier, you're a stifler and a flighter. I see that. That's how you coped with it before. That's how you're coping with it now. Stifling is deadly, though. That's how we crap fit and we accept abusive behavior, is just stifle the feelings about it. And then don't tell anybody. Whatever you do, don't tell anybody, because they're going to say what I'm saying. Girl, you got to get out, right? Which you don't want to hear, because right now your CPTSD believes, if you're like me, it's not fully conscious, but trust, I don't know, see if you identify with this. It feels like you will die if you leave the relationship. That's an abandonment wound doing the talking, okay? You're not going to die at all. You'd be fine. But you need love. You need love and support from women friends who understand what this is, which you can find in 12-step meetings, Al-Anon, or maybe Sex and Love Addicts. So your question, there was this little irony here. How do I support him? I don't know if you, at this point, you've heard me say so much intense stuff in your face, but you do not support him. That is not your job. It's not appropriate. When you say that, that's when you sound to me like you've had a break with reality. You don't support him. He's throwing wontons at your head. Okay? He says he's threatening violence. He's throwing you out. It's just, you don't support him. It's not your job. You can't. You're ineffective. You're a terrible supporter. I think sometimes that's what got through to me, is when people would point out what a terrible job I was doing. If I believed that I was helping somebody keep it together, I sure had another think coming, because look at that person. They weren't together. So you're not good at this. So step back. Take all that energy. You know who your job is? You know the answer, right? It's you. Your life is a mess right now. And this is a beautiful moment when you get to go, oh gosh, yes, this has been like horrible. I need it to be better. I need it to be easier. I need people. I need to feel hope. I need people to just say kind things and give me a little validation. So here you are. Welcome, Casey. Welcome, welcome to the beautiful warm waters of kind people who believe in your recovery and want to help you do it. But this is what it looks like. You can't start recovering while you're engaged in this trauma bonded, codependent, bad dream that all your energy has to go into saving somebody who's just going down the tubes. You cut off contact. You don't contact them at all. No explanation is needed. You change your locks, move away if you have to. I'm telling you, your life can't turn out well. If this is your third one, there's going to be a fourth one. Please stop now. Do whatever it takes. Change whatever you need to change about your life. Take some time off. Get public assistance if you need to. Get to the meetings. Like, put yourself first. For the first time in your life, put your healing first. Do whatever it takes to put your healing first and pop out of this so that you can begin to sprout like a little dandelion coming through the cracks in the sidewalk. There's just been this terrible period where there's so much you didn't say about your life, but I can imagine. It's hollow. It's not going anywhere. There's probably something, maybe you have a job where you get some self-esteem or something, but you can't even feel your own thoughts because there's this huge wall of codependent, trauma-bonded crazy happening, just playing in front of your eyes all day long. So you walk away, and then your true feelings and your true perceptions can begin to come back. And it feels good. It feels really good. You just need some help to get through the hard spells, which might be a lot for the first couple weeks, and then it just comes in waves. You'll have pain, you'll cry, you'll be like, I want to go back. And then you'll be like, no, I'm going to call my friend. I feel like going back. And your friend goes, don't go back. And you go, I know. She says, come on, let's go get some tea. Let's go sit down. Let's go have a walk. Let's go to the movie. Let's go put on warm socks. Whatever it is that you need to just be comforted through those moments, and then it passes. That's what CPTSD is like. It's like these waves that just tell you weird stories. And right now you're in the middle of a tsunami. It's not your fault. And you're not crazy. There's actually nothing wrong with you. The symptoms have gotten the better of you. So this part at the end where you say you feel so bad that he might need a hug, that he never hugged you, but he might need one and you want to be there. So, I'm just going to venture to say, whenever you have this thought about him, like, poor him, he needs a hug, just say, that's my CPTSD distorting something when the thought really is, I need a hug. I need a hug. And you don't need a hug from your abuser. You need a hug from somebody who is kind and caring and never yells at you or throws anything at you. And that would be women who are on the journey of healing with you. And perhaps a therapist if you can afford it. So I wish you well. And I wish you Godspeed to make this difficult, perilous journey out of a relationship that has a grip on your brain. But you can do it. I did it. So many people here did it. And just come on in. The water's just fine. It feels very good. And it's going to turn out so much better. And you'll only be able to experience it when you give it a try.